If you follow this channel for any amount of time, you know that I recommend writers' conferences. Writers' conferences help you to improve your writing, to become more confident, to meet editors, to meet agents, to meet other authors, and to be able to network. And so today's guest, Linda Rae Sande, is going to share with you not only a little bit about herself as an author, but she and Ginger Ring started an author event in Deadwood, South Dakota. It's called Wild Deadwood Reads. And she's going to share with you how she got it started, what was the inspiration for getting it started, and what you can get out of this event. So this is a really special interview. I'm really excited, and I hope that you enjoy it.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Monte channel. I'm very happy to have you here, and I have a special guest that I am so excited to introduce to you. Her name is Linda Rae Sande, and not only is she a very prolific author, and then she's going to share a lot of writing tips and her writing journey with you, but she and author Ginger Ring have also created a really, really exciting author event in Deadwood, South Dakota, and she's going to share a little bit about that as well. So if you are going, or if you've never been, you'll probably want to after listening to how exciting this is. So we're going to begin by me reading her bio, and then I'll ask her a bunch of questions that I'm sure that she will answer wonderfully. Okay, so here we go. So her bio, she is a self-described nerd and lover of science. Linda Rae spent many years as a published technical writer specializing in 3D graphics, workstations, software, and 3D animation. Her movie credits include Shrek and Shrek 2. Very cool. Getting lost in the rabbit holes of research has resulted in historical romances set in the Regency era as well as ancient Greece. A fan of action-adventure movies, she can frequently be found at the local cinema. Although she no longer has any fish, she follows the San Jose Sharks. She's a member of Novelist Inc. and makes her home in Cody, Wyoming. So welcome, and thank you very, very much for taking some time to speak to us today. I'm really, really excited to have you.
So much for having me. It's great to meet you too.
Thank you. Okay, so let's just begin by, for people that don't know you, just if you can introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about the type of books that you write and why you chose that genre.
My background is actually in technical writing. I have a degree in physics with an emphasis in astronomy and a minor in math. And I used my science background to become a technical writer. And I did that for many years in Silicon Valley. I got to become familiar with a lot of different technologies over the years because I had to write about things that were being developed. And this has been, 40 years ago. So I got to be on the forefront of things that ended up becoming cell phone technology, for example, working on contracts. So I kind of knew what was going on in a lot of other industries. I worked in education for a while. I taught at night, I would teach physical science, and in the days, I would teach college algebra. So I have kind of an interesting background in that sense. And then moving from writing technical stuff to writing fiction was just kind of a good progression, a lot more fun. And that at night after my day job, and I just enjoyed enough that I've just continued to do it into retirement. So I'm working on book number 55 right now, although book number 56 has already come out. So
Wow, that is amazing. That's amazing. You must write very quickly.
don't actually I only write about 1,200 words a day,
But you're consistent. You write every day.
and so I find if you do that, well, you're writing over 360,000 words a year, and so that means you can put out.
Wow. It's really impressive because I'm lucky if I get one book out a year, and I write very, very slowly. So what inspired you then? So you write romance with Regency Romances with a twist. So what inspired you to write that, and what do you mean by a twist?
A lot of my interest in writing in this period has to do with genealogy. My mother had been doing genealogy for about 4 decades, and so
Wow.
Found a branch of the family that came from the Sussex area of England. I started to research more of that era and what was going on, what was happening in England during the early 1800s, and it was just fascinating. Um, the entire England was just consumed by this overall change, and this was happening due to the Industrial Revolution. So overnight, like from 1799 to 1800, suddenly fashion changed, architecture changed. Just there's this education thing that happened, and it's just such an interesting period of time that there's a ton of materials available for research. So that made it really interesting to learn about that era, learn what was going on. And this the Regency era was just such a it's only 11 years long, and yet
Right.
there's thousands and thousands of books written during that time because so much was happening. And it is really a very romantic period of time, both for art and for what was happening in England as well as the rest of Europe. So
Yeah.
that was fascinating. When I was writing my first set of stories, I can remember my sister read one of the first books I wrote was called The Kiss of a Viscount, and that's still available. It's a freebie on all the retailers. And there's the way I wrote that story, because I tend to have grown up with television and movies. When I'm writing, I'm visualizing the movie in my head,
Mm.
um, and so many of my favorite movies are the kind where the action happens, and then you'll have whoever pulled it off explain how they did it. And so occasionally I would have that in a story where I'd have a scene that would play out, and you as a reader wouldn't necessarily know that it was all pre thought out until afterwards when the two guys would get together and say, "Oh, I'm thank you so much for helping me get the girl," kind of thing, and explain how.
Yeah.
And my sister said to me, "God, you write such twisted books."
Wow. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, I haven't read a lot of Regencies, but like you say, it's a really fascinating time. I love all the costumes and the fashion and all of that.
That twist, unfortunately, that word sometimes gets interpreted. I think some of the people who don't read my books don't do so because they think it means pink. And that's not at all what's meant by that.
So are your romances then, would you consider them sweet romances or what's the temperature?
Even spicy, but I would say
I
they're
see. Okay.
planes out of five. So there is open door sex, but it's not overly graphic. Um,
Okay.
Careful about the language I use. You rarely find certain words. You'll find the older fashioned words for some of those
Yeah.
anatomical parts, and so
Right, right.
away with a little more, I think, sometimes. But yeah, most of them are four flame. There's a few that are closer to three flame.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds great. Sounds great. Now, how long then, so since you're so prolific, how long does it take you to complete one novel and get it published and the whole journey?
So early on, because readers, way back when I first started writing fiction, um, historical romances were like 100,000, 120,000 words, and that's what I was writing. So for
Wow.
6 books, they're pretty long. But readers' tastes have changed. They tend to have a shorter attention span. And so my books now are down to between like 70 and 90,000 words. Most of them, there's a few that I've had to do for anthologies that are much shorter, where you have to keep your word count down to around 25,000 words. I
Oh
have like
boy.
5 of those shorter books. But for the most part, I try to keep my books between 70 and 90. So I can sometimes do a book. Usually, the shortest of a longer book will be 3 to 4 months is the period of time that I'll work on those books. And that's from like the time I start writing it till the time that it may be available, like to go into readers' hands or almost. Because there's usually that period of time, that last couple of weeks, where I'd prefer to have my advanced reader team have it, and maybe the paperback will be available, and then finally the ebook will become available. And and then a few months later, the audiobook.
Wow. Okay. So your paperback comes out first, and then your ebook.
If you have your paperback available early, your advanced readers can have a place to post their review, and so that when the ebook releases, the product page gets merged together with the ebook page, so your reviews show up on release day, and so
Oh.
real easy to have a good launch for your book.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay. And then do you do your own audiobooks?
Uh-huh. No. I always, when I was writing my books, I was always imagining a British accented
Yeah, it makes sense.
storyteller. I had a few people audition way back in like 2013 or 14, and audiobooks were kind of just getting going. And it was kind of tough at first. Mine must have had like 12 auditions for the first one that I had done, and I just wasn't really happy with what I was finding. And so for the first few, I had a couple of different audiobook narrators, and they were great to work with, but like one guy was just too Shakespearean.
Yeah.
He did the storyteller voice, and so when Michael Troughton auditioned, I was amazed. This guy is a British actor. His father was the second Doctor Who, and he's got the perfect tenor voice and he can do lots of characters because he's an actor. He can do lots of different accents, lots of characters, and he's just been great to work with. So he's done almost all of my.
Oh, that's great. That's great when you can find someone that really, really works and that you love the sound of your story coming out of their voice, So that's great. That's great. Yeah, I know. I would have a hard time doing my books as well. I hired somebody for not my last book, but my previous book, because I needed a male voice as well. So I think it's easier to have somebody else do it. I don't think I have a good reading voice myself. So I don't know, I might try it sometime just to try it, but it's great when you can find somebody that really works for you. So you said now from beginning to actually publish book 3 to 4 months. That's wonderful.
Usually, actually, I would say I'm closer to 4 to 5 on most. It's the shorter books that I can do a little faster.
Yeah.
But sometimes those shorter books, I find that you're doing just as much research sometimes, or maybe more. So that having to stop and do the research, it just depends on where the
Yeah,
time they're set in. And
exactly. Shorter doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to take shorter amount of time to write. Yeah, the research takes just as much time and the editing takes a lot of time. So do you edit your own books as well, or do you hire someone to edit your books?
Michelle Fair has been editing my book since about 2000, and I had other editors before that, proofreaders and things too, and then of course my advanced review team helps too because they'll catch stuff that other people don't catch, and then I also have an author critique group. We meet every other week. There's 5 of us. We all write in different genres of romance, and our chapters from the past couple of weeks, wherever we've written with each other, and we read each other's work and mark it up. And then when we meet for dinner every other week, we discuss plots and character development and all kinds of things about books and publishing. And so that's really helpful as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is that something that you recommend for new writers, that they should look for writing critique partners or other writers to share their work or to critique or to even bounce ideas off of?
I find that being an author can be a very solitary profession.
Yeah.
And even if you're an extrovert or an introvert, either one, that you really do need the feedback of other authors, and that sense of camaraderie you can get from getting together and discussing stuff. So if you can find people in your local area that you can get together with in person, it's huge. It can help you so much, can reinforce and help kind of build you up and provide a little confidence boosters when you need them. It's so important to have a network of people that you can rely on in this business. And so over the years, although I didn't have that at the beginning, I've so appreciated having that over the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years that we've been doing this. And
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, did you have this from the very beginning? Because a lot of times at the beginning, when writers just start writing, they either don't know anyone or they're even afraid to share their work. I know I was at first when I first started writing. I didn't want anybody to read it. And so I think it takes time to find your group and to, I guess, be confident enough or brave enough to share your work and get other people's opinions.
exactly right. There's our local libraries. A lot of local libraries have writing groups. So if you can get in on that, it helps you become more comfortable with reading your material out loud to other people. And if there isn't a group like that at your local library, maybe you need to be the one to set it up, because you can find that you find um, your critique group out of those people that might attend something like that. And
Yeah.
it's a good place to start.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's a good tip.
There's a marketing for romance writers group, and you can find within there maybe people that live in your local area that you can get together with.
So do you have a favorite theme that or a romance trope that you use when you write?
Um, I really like to write the second chance romances,
Mm,
one where you've got older couples who've already been there, done that, and now they're maybe on their second relationship in life. Or maybe it didn't work out the first time for them, so you're giving them a chance to make it work when they're older. Those I really like writing, mostly because I'm an older person, and so it's not as interesting for me to write the 20-year-old.
yeah. Yeah, I love those. I love the second chance romance. Those are my favorite as well. Okay, that's great. Well, we talked about audiobooks. Let's see. What do you hope, or what do you hope that readers take away from your books? So they're fairly long, actually. To me, you said smaller books, and 75 or 90,000 words is still a lot. So what do you hope that when they close your book, what do you want to leave them with?
I like to leave a reader with a smile on their face. I tend to try to have enough humor in my books that they're not all serious, romance.
Yeah.
All my stories, almost all of them, have two romances in them, not just one. That's part of the reason they're maybe a little longer. So you get two happily ever afters in the book, and I do try to have a little humor, and end on humor, so that you kind of like close the book with a grin on your face and want to read the next.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. That's great. We need more of that. We need more happiness and more joy. Okay, so what are some common misconceptions in the romance genre? So I started off writing romance as well. I mean, I still do women's fiction, but we know that there are a lot of what people think romances aren't really what romances are. So what do you think about that? What are some misconceptions, or what do you think romances are?
I think it's still okay. So first of all, the definition of a romance is a book that ends with a happily ever after. Simple as that. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with how much sex is in it, or how much steam or whatever. And unfortunately, I think romances have been clumped together, or people just assume they are erotica, or that there's somehow pornography involved, which is so far from the truth. And yet we still can't get that idea out of people's heads that this is not mommy porn. These romances are tales of relationships, of what we go through in life, and it doesn't have to be a man and a woman. It can be a romance, male male romances, female female romances, and female male romances. It cover the gamut. And it's really important for people to understand that these books are about relationships. And
Yeah. Very good. Exactly. And I think that I think you've nailed it. Exactly. It's about relationships. It's not, it's, obviously there's in any romance, or you're going to have some of those sexual scenes or romantic scenes, but it's really about the relationship and about loving each other, no matter what, right? So falling in love with that special person. So I think you're absolutely correct there. All right. How about do you plot, or how do you develop your stories? Again, I think they're fairly long stories. So do you spend a lot of time plotting? Is that included in those, 3 to 5 months? Or do you, when you sit down to write, you've already got your idea started and you just start writing?
So I used to be a panther way back when, like 15 years ago. But over time, I realized I really need to have a little more structure so I wasn't spending too much time in the weeds while I was writing. And so
Yes.
what I do now is I try to start with an idea of a couple or situation, and usually in set in a series. So I'm thinking of the bigger picture, and
Mm.
um, I'll come up with a couple, the idea of a couple, maybe find some images. I like to use period images for provide to the cover designer for my covers, and that helps set me off on writing the synopsis first of the book or an overall idea, and then I use Malel for the Mac to write my books. And within that program, I can have it on the left hand side to show the outline. And so I develop an outline for the book, an overall kind of structure of where my main beats are going to happen during those romance beats, and then where the secondary couple is going to come in and maybe have their share of stuff. And
Hmm.
I'm going to sentence or two in each chapter about what's going to happen in that chapter, and sometimes I won't necessarily write linearly. I'll sometimes write the end first, maybe some of the middle, and then I'll get going on the beginning. A couple of times I've actually written a book from beginning to end. It hasn't happened very often, but occasionally that too. And it's like, wow,
Yeah.
like how much
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting that you can write the end
sometimes
for, yeah.
research, or if I have to stop and say, oh, I need to find out more about that, I'll go off and write something, chapter where I don't need to have done research or don't need research for that chapter. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. I've done that too. I jump around, probably not to the end, but especially if there's an emotional scene, and for some reason I'm having an emotional day, it's like I'm going to write that scene because I'm feeling all these things today, and it works. It works because you can just all that can go into your novel, and then when you come back to it, maybe a week or a month later, you're like, oh wow, that I'm glad I did that, because if I had to create, I'm not feeling all these things. So sometimes it's hard. It's easier just to jump ahead. So that's very cool. Do you have writing rituals? Do you just sit down and write, or do you light
um,
candles, play music?
I don't know where I am. Molel for the Mac is also available for the iPad. So I have a version of it on the iPad so that I can transfer files back and forth. So if I'm writing at home on my desktop, I'm just writing here, but I tend to use music. For years and years, I was a subscriber of Brain.fm. I would set
Mm.
it, and they now have a creativity setting, which really helps. And so play it, and then sometimes if I'm having a hard time getting settled in, I have this product called it's a remedies to roll on by Neil's Yard's Organics. And if this one is called Study, there's one for sleep and there's one for some other stuff. But Study, it helps me hold my concentration, and then having that music on will really help me get into. And within 10 seconds, I'm in the
Yeah.
mood. And if I am been in my office too long, or if I'm not, years ago, I used to do all my writing at night because I worked a day job. And so at night,
Mm.
I take my iPad and go to a local restaurant, sit at the bar, and have dinner and a drink while I wrote. And I could
Wow, that's great.
buy at dinner just sitting at the bar, and nobody would bother me. And I've done that for years and years. Probably half my books have been written sitting in restaurants.
Wow, wow, that's great. Yeah, it's nice to get out. I don't think I've ever done that, but I do go when I'm plotting or thinking up stories. I like to go to a little coffee shop or something, because yeah, I think all the noise and everything that's going on around you, it's nicer sometimes than in your office where everything's so quiet and you hear your animals or whatever, whoever else is in the house. So that is good. And so when you're doing this and you have your music and all of this, how does that, well, I guess, do you suggest other people have a ritual? I don't tend to have one, honestly, because I've taught myself to. I used to try to do all this stuff, and I'd have my wine, and I thought that's not a good idea because I fall asleep. But I've gotten, because I teach college and I have to go back and forth between, listening, responding to students, and then other things, back and forth. I've taught myself to just, when I sit down, I start writing. But I know that some beginning writers may have a hard time doing that, just switching from their day job to writing. So do you recommend that they have something, some kind of ritual or something like that to get started?
Do think that structure is really important to writing? That as a writer, you will have an easier time making deadlines and meeting your maybe goals. If you set goals, like writing goals, so many words a day or a week, that you have a tendency then to meet those goals if you set yourself a deadline. If you're just constantly a procrastinator, maybe you're one of those people that needs that deadline and just to get anything done at all.
Right.
So
Right.
I find that if you intend to be a serious author and you want to do this for a living, you absolutely have to meet your deadlines. You have to follow directions, and in order to be successful. And so I really encourage that in younger writers to develop some sort of routine that will get you to where you need to be at the end of the day or the end of a week, to meet your goals, and be realistic about it. If your life is total chaos and you've got kids running around and animals, and you're having to, do a lot of stuff all day long, I think it's important then to set time for yourself either late in the day or early in the morning before everyone's up to get your writing in, even if it's only 100 words. Just that routine can help develop good habits for the rest of your author life.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I agree. Are you lucky enough to get blocks of time to write? Well, now you said you're no longer working, so you have as much time probably as you want to write. But do you have like a set time where you work 3 hours in the morning or in the
Yeah,
evening?
I would prefer. I mean, years ago, I used to think, oh, it'd be so great if I could just sit down in my office and get my writing done first. And for years, to me, saving the best for last, yeah, writing at the end of the day, because
Yeah.
I was saving that. I was like, oh, I was gonna have this time at the end of the day to write, because I was working the days and I couldn't get writing in that time. Then I was always writing at night. I still probably do a lot of my writing at night, and
Hmm.
I'm going to get my writing done in the morning. And once in a while that happens, but I'm not, because I have other things scheduled.
Yeah.
This life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you've trained yourself to write in the evening. I noticed that your books, you create them yourself. Well, I don't know if you do. You said you have your cover designer, but I noticed that the style is all the same. Like the cover style is all the same. Is this something that you planned? That you have a look, a brand, let's say, that follows one book after the other? And how important is that?
Okay, so way back in the very, very beginning, before I was ever published, before I found my first publisher, I sat down with a local designer and I said, I want to come up with a look and feel for books that is similar enough so that when they're on a shelf, you can tell they're all from the same author. Because
Hmm.
my bookshelf, like I have this library of hundreds of books, and I could just look at it like a series of books by the same author. And I thought it was so great if they were intentional, or the publisher was intentional about those books having the same look and feel on a shelf, like the spines all line up and everything looks the same. That's so cool to have a book and be able to pull a book and know that you recognize that book, that author based on the cover of the book. And so we set about kind of planning out the same sort of stylistic elements for a book cover, the same font for the author name, the same font for the titles, and then the same look for the photographs we use. The time I really wanted a painterly look to my books, I wanted them to look like watercolor covers. And
Hmm.
she couldn't do that. She didn't have that skill in the digital sense to be able to do that. So we just settled on a uh, photographic look to the covers. And then a few years back, I realized it was really time to recover my books. They needed a new look, but I wanted to keep some of the same elements. So I worked with Dar at Wicked Smart Designs, And she did an overall, like over the course of maybe a month, we recovered 45 books, plus did the translation of several of them because I was doing translation, starting to do translations. And so it was like amazing what she could do, because she could make those photographs look sort of like a painting. And she repositioned my name, and we went with my logo version of my name for the front covers. And it's been great. It was like, oh, it's like all new books to me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Sounds like you know something about branding, and because it is nice when you see a book and the Pattersons, all of these, when it's one of their books, because like you say, the fonts and all that have a similar look to them.
What's going to be recognizable elements
Right.
that's the author name, and the way the title's positioned,
Right.
and so those kind of things, if you make those intentional decisions up front, I think it can help you, because then it narrows, instead of having everything be available to you when you work with a cover designer, you can narrow things down and narrow your cover designer down, so that you're not flailing all the time when you're trying to come up with a good looking cover. You can start the cover on the first try, because you got this down so pat.
Yeah, and it's nice. And not every author is able to have input, but when you do, it's really nice that you can provide them with some guidance, and then have your books, because they look really nice. I know, like on your website, they look beautiful. So other than covers, what else do you that authors do to stand out? Because in the romance, but in the every genre, it's difficult for writers to stand out. So what kind of marketing or what kind of promotion can they do to have their books stand out so that readers can find them?
Okay, so I think one of the most important things to have, that every author should have for their own platform, their own place for people to come find out about them and their books, is their website. First of all, have and be very intentional about how you design the website. The same care and feeding that went into deciding how I wanted my books to look, my covers to look early on, I tried to put that into my website. I picked a color that I liked, that I could live with, and a scalable design. My website's only 2 layers deep. So what happens is you're either on the top, or you're one level in at the book level. And nobody has to go clicking in any deeper unless they just go to the link to go to buy the book on the various retailers. And I have all the links to all the retailers for each book on each book page. And that makes it possible to scale that website. I do my own because I used to do websites as part of being a tech writer.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you do with your technical experience, do you do your own website? Because
I mean, I can still do everything raw if I need to, but I work in Dreamweaver, and I have for many, many years. And so I just have done it that way. I also have a blog site on WordPress that I use that also has a book, book pages for every book, but it's also a place where I can go and have descriptions of trips that I have taken, where I travel, and then special, like if I've done special research and maybe it didn't make it into a book, or it's like extra depth that I think can go into reinforcing what you put into a book. So I share those kinds of things on that blog site, and I'm amazed that it's just organic reach. I don't do anything to really push that, but because it shows up in search results, people go there to read the article about the essential mistress, for example, or my trip to England and all these places that I visited over the course of over 3 weeks. And so that's important. Then I also have a newsletter, and again, organic development in my newsletter. I've worked with other historical romance authors to build my subscriber list over the years. But again, I've been at this a long time, so and I have pretty solid list. It's not too big, it's not too small. I'm reaching all my readers, and then and then people subscribe organically, and also through newsletter builders that I do through BookFunnel with other authors. And so that I own that newsletter is my own, and then I work with other authors to cross promote in my genre. I think those of us, we also share a private group on Facebook where we can say, hey, I've got a newsletter going out. Does anybody have something they want me to include? And we work with each other on that to help expand our reach.
Right.
I also run a Facebook readers group. Over again, organic reach. I've got about 600 members. We have a lot of fun in that group. I can post things that, because it's a private group, we have a lot of fun posting great memes about reading and about historical romance. I can put historical tidbits in there. I can promote other authors in there. And as well, about maybe every 2 weeks, I'll promote one of my own books in there.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a lot of things. You have your personal groups and your newsletter that you're reaching your readers, and you have your website for everybody to find you. So that's fantastic. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to do. Social media too. I don't know how involved you are in social media, but I think it's a little more difficult because you've got so many different people.
I think choosing one or two and sticking with those is really important. I love photography, and I thought for sure Instagram would be my thing, but it's not. It turns out that I spend more time on Facebook and on Threads, and I think if I was writing to a younger audience, maybe I would be on TikTok, but my readers aren't on TikTok, so
right. And I think that's the key too, is like, where are your readers? Where are the people that love what you do? And that's where you have to spend most of your time. All right. Well, then is there anything else you want to share about your personal writing? And then I'm going to ask you some questions about Wild Deadwood Reads. That's an amazing adventure that you've taken on with Ginger. I can't even imagine starting something that big, but yeah, anything else you want to share about you and your personal books, your writing?
I think just that I really love what I write, and I love that it's reaching such a huge audience overseas. Almost half of my readers are outside of the United States, and
Wow.
it used to be closer to a third to two-thirds. But I have people that read my books who live in like Malaysia and the Philippines and Singapore, and obviously the colony countries like England. There's England, all its colony countries, Australia, Canada. It's just great. I love it.
Yeah,
I
that's fantastic. Wow. Okay. And that's important too. I think just really loving what you do, because then it never feels like you're working, even if you have your day job and then you only get to write for a little while at night. If you're loving it, if you just can't wait to get to your story, then it's never a chore. You can work till 2 in the morning. It doesn't matter. So it's great that, you really love what you're doing. Okay. So I guess first is, what is Wild Deadwood Reads?
Okay, so Wild Deadwood Reads is a reader and author convention that happens every June in Deadwood, South Dakota. This upcoming one will be our ninth Wild Deadwood Reads. It was invented back, we first talked about this back in 2016. Ginger Ring and I had been attending book conferences for years. So we'd run into each other mostly in Vegas or at these conventions we go to. And we always bemoan the fact that we thought that they weren't very well organized sometimes, or very well promoted. We'd go there expecting to see hundreds of readers, and there would be, not even 100. And there'd be like 100 authors there, and we'd be like, oh, what's going on here? So we said, she said, I really think that we could do a better job at this if we put on our own show. And we were sitting, we were doing a conference at the time in Minneapolis at the Mall of America. And we were at this hotel that was totally not the right kind of hotel to do a reader conference. And we didn't have very much attendance. And we were just like sitting at a restaurant in the mall with Randy Alexander, who was another author that we were working with. And the three of us had lunch, and we talked about doing the show. Well, Ginger said, I've always wanted to do a show in Deadwood. I live in Cody, Wyoming, so it's about 5 hours from here. I've been there. I was like, it's a casino town. Why would you want to do this? No. She says, it's this Western town, it's kind of Victorian, and she thought it would be charming and a great place to do this kind of thing. And I thought, well, let's try. We could do it once. So we worked with a local Holiday Inn, and we set up having this book signing one with 45 authors that came from all over. We couldn't believe it. And
Wow.
a line of people out the door waiting to get in when we opened. So we were like, wow, this could really be something. And so that first year kind of kicked off, but we realized we needed a bigger venue. And so we found a much bigger venue down at another Holiday Inn property. But that was almost too big. The convention center that we were in hold 3,000 for a concert. And
Yeah.
so we were able to do a breakfast with the authors and do a lot of activities outside of just the book conference. And so we'd get close to 100 authors and then all these readers. Well, we find that in order to leverage the best audience in Deadwood is to do it during a time when they have their biggest audience. And that's during Wild Bill Days. So now we, for the last, I don't know, 7 years or so, we have been part of Wild Bill Days, which is, it ends on Father's Day. So that week before, they have free concerts every night. They have dog diving. They have a classic car show. All these activities in Deadwood that attract about 50,000 people. And we lost our venue after 2 years at that one venue. They said, they got sold to a Japanese concern who was looking for a different thing to put into their space. And meanwhile, the Lodge at Deadwood, which is the largest convention center in Black Hills, had been after us about moving our show up there, which surprised me because I just thought in June, it's kind of their wedding venue. And they're like, we'd rather have you than a wedding. There for many years and love that. I mean, they're great to work with. We have the ballroom and we have rooms for our learning days because we have 2 days of classes free for authors who attend there. We have a Friday night is the author reads night where authors can read an excerpt from their novel while people sit around and have drinks and dessert. And then another day of learning on Friday. So Thursday, it's half a day of classes. Friday is all day of classes. And then the author reads. That Saturday morning is our breakfast with the authors. Authors sponsor a table and set it up the way they want, give away stuff while people have a breakfast. Huge buffet breakfast. It's really worth like $20 and it's all you can eat and all kinds of food. And then we go in and we have the big photo shoot with all the authors and then go in and start the book signing, which goes from 9:30 to 3:30. Hundreds of readers who come through, we give them away a free book bag and a memory book. It's about a 40-page book with listings of all the authors who are there, along with pictures of their bio, and 3 book covers are included in that book. And we encourage the readers to go to every single table by giving them the opportunity to win Kindles. So the person who goes through and gets the most autographs from authors, they get signed up and put in for a drawing to win Kindle. And so that gets people to go to every author table, and people come in there with wagons and buy books.
Yeah.
With carts and things. It's quite the show.
It is. It is. Last year was the first year that I went. And honestly, I was so impressed. This year, I'm going again. I wasn't going to because it's my 35th anniversary and we were supposed to go to Italy. So I was like, well, Wild Deadwood or Italy, it's close. But we couldn't go for other reasons. So at the last one, I'm like, oh, good. I'm going back to Wild Deadwood. So much fun. And like you said, there's so many people, so many readers that go through there. It's so much fun networking with all the other authors and seeing the books that they have. I don't know if I went home with more books last year than I sold, but it was just so much fun. So I think you guys do an amazing job putting this together. And there are so many things, not only a lot of conferences. I think what makes a difference is a lot of conferences are really focused on the workshops, and you do have workshops, but it's not overwhelming. There's so many other things going on, and you can learn a little bit. You can go down to Deadwood and do some of that fun stuff and come back and have the readings with the authors. You can just it's really, really great. You guys have done an amazing job.
I think I really do have to credit Ginger for ever having the vision to think that this would work in that.
Yes.
But the town has really embraced us. They love having us, and I think our venue really helps in that they like having authors over a wedding. I don't know if it's damage or something. I don't know. But anyway, they really like having us there, and that makes a difference too when you're wanted, by the venue, and our readers really appreciate that Deadwood is a fun place. But not only just Deadwood, it's the idea that you can bring your whole family because there's so much to do in that area. We're talking, people on their way. They'll come in like RVs or campers. They'll go to the Badlands. They'll go to Custer State Park. They go to the reptile Fair Country USA, Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse.
Yeah, just so many things. Yeah, yeah. And there's so many different types of writers too. So you're not going to have just because I've gone to like romance writing conventions and romance writing, which I love, but it's also interesting. You get a lot of different readers because you'll find all kinds of books and different types of authors. Like you said, they come from all over the country.
Yeah, and then I really like that that our authors are so generous and that they'll bring raffle baskets.
Yeah.
To benefit the Shiloh Horse Rescue there in Deadwood. And oh my gosh, we have some great baskets.
Oh, can you tell us a little bit about that rescue? What is it?
Yeah, the Shiloh Horse Rescue. They're a local group there in Deadwood that sees to rescuing horses that maybe whose owners can't take them anymore, or horses that are maybe older, maybe don't have a home, and they see to their care and feeding. They see to the vet bills and things like that. So last year we raised over $2,000 for that organization through those raffle baskets that were donated. And
that's great.
One of our writers, Randy Weir, always donates a free library. He builds a library, and one of those free libraries like what you'd see in your neighborhood full of books. And then authors contribute books to that free library. So, for example, last year's winner went home not only with the casino slot machine, but I think there were 75 books in that.
Wow.
Machine free library.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember seeing that. That's really, really neat. And yeah, and you have you can get all kinds of books. You get your library. Yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, like I said, last year was my first year, so I wasn't too sure. So this year I'm going to bring a basket. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing last year. So how long does it take you to put this together? I mean, I don't know how you have time to write and have this create this big event.
We have actually already started 2026 because we always think, oh, this will be the last year, but
no.
And well, how can I sign up for next year? Because I can't do it this year or whatever. We're like, next year? We haven't even done this year yet. So we actually have already signed the contract with our venue for next year. We have an interest form on our website, the wilddeadwoodreads.com website, where authors who are interested can indicate that. We try to encourage authors to be multi-published. We like to have at least, hopefully, 3 books or more out, because we find that people who only have one book, it makes it really hard for you to be successful at a book signing if you only have one offering. But for those who maybe have something unique and maybe a single book is enough, we have occasionally accommodated them by letting them buy a table. We just warn them that, hey, if you've only got one book, you may not be as successful here as some of the other established authors are.
Right.
And so we put in, and I think having a book that people can take home with them with all those authors in it, that's something that they can go back. I have a friend who always says she looks through that book because she needs to find out who the author was that wrote this so she can go buy the next book in the series or whatever. And
yeah.
I think
that's great. So does it cost the reader any money to go to the event?
Totally free for readers. We don't charge readers anything. So they go home with a book bag, at least a book bag, and this 40-page book. And they usually go home with a lot of swag too, because we have very
Yeah. I was just thinking about that too. Like, what kind of things do I want to give away? But yeah, everybody, you walk along the tables and you can get bookmarks and candy and all kinds of things too that are really cool. And so it's kid friendly as well, right?
and we also have a lot of children's authors there. So there's a whole
Yeah.
section. We try to put the children's books kind of in one area, and we try to make sure our erotica authors are on the other side of the ballroom.
That's a good idea.
Family friendly.
Okay, so if you are an author, then you have at least 3 books and you want to register, so it's too late for 2025, right?
We could still take. We just had an unfortunate cancellation. We have somebody who had to have surgery, so we have a couple of tables still available for this year.
Okay.
Like I said, we have started taking interest for 2026.
Okay. And it doesn't cost authors anything either just to go. So if you want to go to Learning Day, that's free. It only costs if you want to sell your books and you purchase a display table, which is honestly very reasonable compared to other conferences.
This is sort of a labor of love for both Ginger and I. This is not a money making operation at all. We try to offer things that are of interest to readers and authors. We try to make sure they go away having learned something, especially if they're willing to spend some time in the classes. And that's another thing. It doesn't cost anything to take those classes.
Yeah.
Amazing classes scheduled for this year. I'm just always surprised how generous authors are with their time to be able to prepare a class and present it at the show. So, and sponsors, because authors are willing to put money to help us buy the refreshments for things like Learning Day. Our meet and greet, which is Thursday night, is free to readers and to authors. And we have some authors that help pay for that with sponsorships. And sponsorships help pay for the author reads night too, because it's like a $10 ticket. And you get all these different desserts to choose from. There's a cash bar available if you want a drink. And then after you're done with the author reads, then you can head downtown into Deadwood and listen to the free concert.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it if you've never been, it's an experience. All right. So I was going to ask you if you've been to other conferences, but you said you've been to many in Las Vegas and all these other. How many conferences do you go to each year?
No, actually, this year I'll just be doing 2 of them. I am on the faculty this year for Wyoming Writers Inc., which I'm also a member of, and
Okay.
class says that, and that's actually it's the first weekend of June.
Oh, wow.
Be there for that, and then Wild Deadwood Reads. Last year, or a couple years ago, I did Ginger's other big show is just for romance writers. It is Romantic Galena Reads, and that takes place in Galena, Illinois, September. And I do the book for that show as well, but just 35 authors. And it's a very quaint, charming, wonderful town. And it happens that book signing happens the weekend of the girlfriends. It's a ladies' weekend in Galena, and all these girlfriend reunions and stuff happen in Galena. So their line for that show is always out the door and around the block.
Wow, that sounds great. I've seen that people talking about it. So I've never been, but I'll have to put that on my calendar as well because that sounds like fun. Okay, so thank you very, very much for sharing all. Again, it's a very, very exciting conference. You get to meet so many different people. I made a lot of new friends last year, so I highly recommend it for people who are just starting out or people who have written a million books. So do you have any last minute or last advice that you want to give to writers, either new writers or established authors?
I would say just don't get too discouraged. I would say it is easy to just feel like, oh, I can never make it in this or whatever, because you just never know when that's going to happen. There are writers who wrote 50 books before they finally had a bestseller. And then there's always that lucky person that might get their bestseller on their first or second book. For me, it was my second. That is just still to this day, I can't believe how many copies of my second book but and so I and just stick with it and be intentional, be kind, be nice to other people, be respectful of other authors, because you can learn so much from other authors.
Yes, I agree. Authors, I think, are the most generous people. They offer free advice. Like you said, they do workshops, they do all kinds of stuff. So if you really, really want to be a writer, you can get all kinds of information and support from other writers. So what next projects? You said you're working on your what 1000th book?
So I right now I'm in the middle of a series called The Grand Tours of the Aristocracy. So
Ooh.
these are books where you're all my characters are on a long trip. So they started in Sicily. That was the first book, a courtship in Catania. The second book was an affair in Athens. So that was took place in Greece in 1841, and now I'm in Egypt. I'm working on the book that takes a lover in Luxor, and it's 1842, and so this group has now moved on. So the third boy in the book is getting his girl for a rogue in Rome, and that'll finish out that series. I have another book to do for the Dragon Blade Publishing, which publishes a series of books in the Lion's Den called the Lion's Den series, and I've done 3 books for them, and I have now contracted to do a 4th one with them.
Well, how exciting. Your books just sound amazing, especially if you love to travel, you love to see different places. You could have fun visiting these places and also enjoy the stories. It sounds fantastic. So the last question is, what do you see as your writing superpower, or your superpower as a writer?
I think probably for me it's organization. I am just an organized person. I'm a lister. Like, I list things that need to be done, and I try to check them off and get them done. I do feel for new authors, because I think there's a lot more that needs to be done these days than there was like 15 years ago. It's so different. It's constantly changing. You just kind of have to roll with the punches.
Well, that organization is an awesome superpower, because you can get so much more done if you are organized. Are you a planner person, or do you have? There's a book, and I just read it last year. It's about planning, but using lists, and I can't remember who the author is, but I tried it. I'm more of a planner with the stickers and all that stuff. So what do you use?
This is I have a
Wow.
There's 3 years of calendars on that wall. And so what I do is I have these markers, and I've been filling them out for like when my deadlines are for books that what I'm contracted with for into 2026. When I'm traveling, when I'm doing conferences, all that stuff goes up on that board.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great. That's great.
Commitments are, and when I can, like when I know I have to write a lot more, maybe to make a deadline.
Well, that's impressive. So how can viewers find you? With your website or social media? Where are you located? Where can they find you?
So I have my website is lindaraysande.com. My blog site is Regency Romance with a twist.com.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook under Linda Rae Sande. I have both an author page and a personal page with that name. And I'm on Instagram and Threads, and Blue Sky, all under Linda. It's Linda Rae. It's just Linda Rae, right?
Okay. Well, I'll link all those below, and so people can just click and find you and chat with you and send you messages and ask you for your books and buy your books. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate you being here. I know how busy you are, and I know that we're only like less than a month away from Wild Deadwood. I'm sure you have a lot to do. So I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions and be on the YouTube channel.
Thank you so much.